Hey, I'm Eman, aka Bioman.
And I'm Robert, aka Dr. Rob.
And today we're going to make a sad attempt of a podcast about regenerative dentistry and the papers we just talked about. So let's dive in. So Robert, what are your thoughts about these papers, and when are we going to grow teeth in the clinic?
So I'm sure you're referring to that article that was reported in April of this year. So a King's College lab came out with a idea of combining two different types of dental cells with hydrogel. Hydrogel is basically, Jello, 90% water, but they have this ability to chemically modify the gelatin and have it cross-link in a manner that helps spur the growth of these supposed tooth structures. That is an indication of regeneration of teeth.
Well, I guess if Jello, we all know it's giant in our supermarkets, what doesn't make like anyone at home be able to regenerate teeth then?
Well, I mean, that's another rabbit hole we can go down. I think the entire premise of regeneration or tissue engineering revolves around the combination of three things. I think you mentioned that last time, right? We need the right combination of cells, the right type of scaffolding or structure for the cells to latch on, and the signals themselves to spur the proper growth of the regenerating tissue. Now, basically, this lab in King's College, that's led by Anna Volponi, is she's really was trying to figure out if this new special type of cross-linked gelatin was able to generate these tooth germs. And basically, upon culturing this little concoction of cells and gelatin, they were able to see that some sort of tooth structure resembling this, precursor of tooth germs was forming. So, I mean, interesting work, but when we see that, if we're trying to see like any sort of product go from benchtop to bedside, it takes years of small animal studies, then large animal, then human trials, and like that's not even including all the regulatory things that needs to happen for it to actually get into the clinic.
Right.
So BBC and all these news outlets, for them to hype this up like it's like 5 years away is just bullshit.
Well, I think my take on it is that these technologies do work in the context of a preclinical model, and I'm sure there will be some clinical efficacy in humans. Where my issue lies is that the articles or even the press might spin these off in a way where they believe that just completely replacing the paradigm of dentistry can be replaced by just these solutions alone without using existing solutions that are already in the clinic. So I think when they talk about that 5-year timeline that, we can put a biologic or a completely tissue engineered solution in the mouth, I don't think we're 5 years away from that. Rather, I think the tissue engineered solutions will work in tandem to clinically used implants and fillings to create a solution that's better than what's out there. But in terms of having something purely biologic or a full tooth grown in 5 years, yeah, I ditto that on the bullshit.
Yeah. No, and don't get me wrong, people. Like, I really think it's great work done by this lab and much needed work to try to realize regenerating any sort of tooth structure. But, there's still so many things involved to commercially and clinically realizing this as a product. So, I mean, hype is great to bring the attention to this work, but we have to be careful in trying to overhype something. And it's a great, interesting platform with very interesting data, but let's, also try to be mindful that there's still decades of work left to actually see if this is the right way to go in regenerating teeth. Now, there's that other article that it came out around the same time in April, involving a Japanese lab, and you're more familiar with that. So,
Yep.
they use genes instead, but you wanna, what exactly was their approach?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of this somewhat of a similar approach. We're kind of using our same jello-like solutions to take these biologic compounds that already exist in the human body, and knowing how they work in the body, we can use those principles to apply in the mouth. So the specific genes that they ended up using are genes that have been previously known to grow teeth in that model where no teeth formation exists. So there are a lot of patients, whether they have a defective tooth or a congenital effect where tooth development doesn't occur, where this gene has been found to rescue the growth of that tooth. So they leverage that principle of the DNA and RNA that's able to do that in the mouth and made a topical solution off it. Now, granted, even though they demonstrated some efficacy in the preclinical models, it again isn't an actual tooth, it's just the cells that help grow tooth. And that only was effective in about 50% of the mice that they found in that study. So to revisit that subject about where the BS really comes from in all this, I think the scientists actually do a very good job when you read the article carefully, acknowledging what the outcome was of that study. But what ends up happening is sometimes it gets filtered in the news saying that, oh, the scientist can grow the cells necessary for new teeth, but the press interprets that as now we have a whole tooth. And that's where I think media can get really dangerous, where there's not a lot of people that are willing to read these articles and understand that we have the prerequisites to build the tooth, not the whole entire tooth just yet. And as I mentioned before, in 5 to 10 years, these solutions will help with currently what's out there clinically, but it's not going to be a single solution that's going to create a whole new tooth.
Yeah, so for our tooth engineer audience, so let's take a step back. So this Japanese lab, they took more of a gene therapy drug delivery approach, as opposed to this lab in King's College. They're more of a regenerative approach that is involves classic tenets of tissue engineering, right? So, and the interesting thing about the regenerative dentistry space is that there are various strategic approaches that are being proposed in this field, and it's basically in a way a wild west right now.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
I think as of right now, we have to understand that there's no clear-cut one approach that has really shined.
Correct. Yeah.
Right? So there's bioprinting that we haven't even talked about based on these two research topics. That's very near and dear to our hearts because we've done research on it. But there's so many other approaches in the field that can be potentially utilized to regenerate a single layer or a whole tooth structure, right? But no, exciting stuff. But again, still, the field is surprisingly still in its infancy, and still a lot of potential for growth.
And I certainly think that for a lot of these solutions, as we bring them out to market, there's still going to be certain patient designations where each of these solutions are going to be needed. So if we talk about a gene therapy in the future, I don't think that's going to be wide sweeping to treat everyone with cavities. Likewise, if we need larger defects treated, bioprinting can help treat those people, but it's not going to be wide sweeping for all people, such as people with congenital defects or genetic defects. So when these next generation solutions come out, I think what needs to happen is while we present sort of in grants the large market that we're addressing in the dental space, I think the solutions that are going to come out are not going to be able to treat everyone. Rather, specific solutions in this new generation of technology are going to need to be figured out as to what solution treats what. Mm-hmm. Congenital defects, let's say, need more of the biologics delivered to them. The large defects, say, get the larger trauma defects. But I think the only way we can actually understand which markets these new biologic regenerative dental therapies tap, we have to perform the clinical trials and get those actual clinical markers. But right now, what's exciting about this work is that we have the funding and approvals for preclinical work, which is a very close tandem to clinical work. But again, animals, while they have their, I would say, like, they're good for certain applications, they're not wide sweeping and concluding what's going to happen in a human too. So when press articles come out, they need to understand that a lot of this work is done in models that aren't actually human, and their physiology is also very different.
Yeah, I mean, so much to think about and so much to explore for for everyone in the dental field.
Right.
Again, a lot more work that needs to be done, and we'll continue talking about this more over the next couple weeks and months, because it is, I believe, it is the next frontier of dentistry. And the last greatest innovation in this field probably is the dental implants. That really was the last biggest innovation that has introduced a product line. Yeah, I mean, this hype about the digital dentistry route, yes, it's made the clinical processes more efficient, but I think really this regenerative dentistry space is the next frontier in really determining what new products are going to be available for the people.
Well, here's a question for you. So you and I have both had this unique experience in working in bioprinting, which is essentially taking printers and printing with these materials that aren't so easy to print, but are necessary components that are needed to regenerate the body, including the mouth, including bones. This technology has a lot of nuance beyond just, the technologies associated with printing plastics, which we can now do commercially at home. Any hobbyist can sort of take a plastic and create a complex shape. Bioprinting, on the other hand, there's a lot of material understanding that I think is very difficult for clinicians to grasp these ideas unless you have a research background in this. So my question is, do you see, at least in the mid to long term, bioprinting technologies be a point of care therapy, or do you see bioprinting as sort of a vocation that engineers need to work with dentists to create a solution for the patient?
I think the short answer to your question is yes. I think this is a whole different rabbit hole that we can go into, but I think that is a topic for another time.
All right.
So, but yeah.
Edit that out.
If you're interested in learning about more of this, I'd say tune in next time. We'll dive more into it. So, but for now, thanks for hearing us out. If you like our content, like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.
Till next time.